to shine. Give 'em what you got, baby. Time to show them all you are. It's time to shine. Gotta give 'em what you got. Gotta show 'em all you
Welcome to the Six Chicks podcast, where you can find curated, authentic, Christ-centered realness. Listen, join us every single week because we definitely have something to say every single week. So we are literally concluding our very first series talking about authentic friendships. And last week, we had a really great discussion around just showing up for each other. And we've been in a relationship for, man, 20 plus 25 years. And if we know anything, we know how to show up for each other, like, period. But on the flip side of things, there are some relationships that can be deemed as toxic, right? And so we just want to, keep it real today and kind of have a really authentic conversation around toxic friendships and what that really looks like. And so I just want to kind of really just dive in because unfortunately, we have all had some relationships in our lifetime that just quite didn't make the cut. Huh? Can we be real? You know what I'm saying? We was road dogs. Everything was beautiful. I mean, and then all of a sudden it's, where is that person at? What happened to them? Did they just fall off the planet? And for some relationships, for the record, if you're recording, for the record, for some relationships, there are seasonal, right? And they're not toxic. So we're not referencing anyone or anybody. Let's just put out that disclaimer real quick, okay? But there are some relationships that we can definitely say have been toxic or not healthy. And so I want y'all to chime in a little bit and talk about times in which you've noticed people did not show up for you, because I feel like that is one of the first signs that maybe this relationship is not what you think it is. We won't go as far as saying it's toxic just yet, but to me, that is one of the first signs, is that when you see people aren't showing up for you, you need to pause and say, so what are we doing here? So y'all chime in. Have you had any relationships where people have not shown up for you?
Well, I will start. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Lisa. You got
it. Because this just hit home for me so hard.
No, it's good.
So I have a friend. I still consider her a friend. We've been friends for 30 years. But I woke up one day and realized, like, wait a minute, she didn't come to my wedding shower. She didn't come to my wedding. She didn't come to baby shower. She didn't come to birthdays. Nothing. And I was angry. And like, we've been friends for 30 years now. And she know who she is. So if you're listening, I still love you. I do. Because I still consider her my friend. But I had to have a serious conversation with her and let her know that I was feeling a certain kind of way. Because I'm like, you haven't been there for anything. So because my thing is communication, I, of course, said something immediately. And we talked about it. So we are able to still be friends. And, we hashed it out. But that was painful. It was really painful when I really thought about it, especially compared to my other friends, that have always been there for me. And then I have this friend that I've been friends with even longer, and she hasn't been there for anything. So that was a huge problem. But I mean, we have worked it out and talked about it, and we're still friends, and I love her. But that was an eye opener for sure. Definitely an eye opener.
It's interesting, Lisa, because now we're being real, right? So I'm going to talk about you.
Yeah.
And I know people would probably be like, dang, like y'all just going in it like that. And it's like, No, the whole point of this show is to demonstrate, or this podcast is to help you understand that we're better together and that we are an established sisterhood. So that means to when you're being established, that's something is being formed, right? And so Lisa is not somebody who isn't showing up for me in the future currently, but 25 years ago, if y'all want just to put it was like 25 years ago, there was a moment where I felt that she didn't show up for me. Um, and, you know, I mean, it hurt my feelings. And, I told her about it and she hated it. She hated that. Like she didn't want me to feel like that. And she has worked for 25 years to not to not allow things that she might, deal with in her own personal life. Because honestly, if you're not showing up for somebody, it's not always because you don't want to show up for them. It's likely because you got something that you got to deal with in your own life. And hey, you might not have it in you to show up for people. So in fairness, we have to always know that about everybody. It can't just always be like, they didn't show up for me and they didn't care about me. And that's just not what it is. Because me and Lisa, I mean, if I need something, she's there. And if she needs something, I'm there. We show up for each other. And yeah. So I love you.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback off of that, I would say for me, it was more of a selfish thing. I grew up being selfish with my time. I am an only child, and not that every only child is like this, but I know for me, it was a thing. I'm selfish. I was selfish. I'm still working on it. But just selfish with my time. So I want to do what I want to do, what I want to do it, and that's that. So it was the heart issue, and also like just being more thoughtful and more considerate. So I'm definitely, that's something I have to work on constantly. But just having friends who will put you on your place and be like, okay, girl, you're tripping. Like, what are you doing? Where are you? I need that. So it definitely helps. And they know I love them.
I think that's good too, because I think that sometimes we assume the other person knows what showing up means in relationships. And I think that, sometimes it's a red flag. And then other times it's just I need to communicate like what I need from this other individual. And I think sometimes people get lost in thinking just that the other person knows exactly what you need. You know what I'm saying? I know for me, like I'm expecting people to show up, but then I have to ask myself, have I told them what I needed? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword sometimes, and so I'm happy that through our friendship and our relationships that we can say, hey, I need you to show up, or you ain't showing up for me. Like, what is this? Are you okay? Like, and we can, just trust that we have each other's back. So I, I want to ask y'all this question. Like, what are some things that you would say? Like, so if someone that's not showing up for you, is that a red flag for a toxic friendship or a toxic relationship? Or what is one red flag of a toxic relationship if that's not one of them?
For me, one immediate red flag is just any action where that person is not accepting of or able to embrace me for who I am. That leads to anything that would like tempt me to like doubt my value or my worth through that can be a myriad of actions connected with that, but something where if I'm noticing that I'm consistently in a space of questioning like who I am and what they thinking about me, or how are they looking at me, then that's a red flag for me.
That's good.
It's interesting. It's kind of weird because I always had in my mind red flags of a toxic relationship. Like I always felt like, oh, if this person does this, then it's not gonna work. But just today, as I was reflecting on these questions about toxic relationships, I felt like the Lord illuminated to me that toxic relationships, there are some people who just are really just bad people, right? And it's just that's what it is. But uh, if you were friends with the person and it became toxic, he kind of illuminated to me that that's undiscussed situations over time. So when the person offended you, hurt your feelings, all of these different things, you never spoke up, you never got to the bottom of it, then they became toxic because their actions over time have put you in a space where you feel as though they're not healthy to be in your space anymore.
Hmm.
But really, it boils down to we never they were like that when you met, they were just like that when you met them and you liked them, but it was those things that they did over time that you did not care for that turned them into a toxic friend. And so really it was so weird to me. I said, so you saying this is about me, Lord? Like I'm like it's really like they're who they are, just like who you are who you are. And somebody might view you as a toxic friend. Cause I know I have some ghost friends that just they gone. And I don't even know why. And I don't even feel like I had no beef with them. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? We didn't have a fight, but they're just gone. That to me signifies that maybe to them I was a toxic friend. I don't know. They never
Hmm.
said anything along the way. So that's just so I don't really have a red flag. The red flag is the undiscussed conversation.
Hmm. That's a different perspective. So, what do you think, Ife? Do you have any examples of toxic or unhealthy relationships?
It's interesting that Angela said that statement because I was literally going to say that when conversations are had and actions still remain the same, that becomes a toxic situation for me.
Hmm.
Like if I kind of, I mean, if I told you how I feel about something, or I'm telling you that this is an issue for me, um and you still continuing with the same things, or treating me in the same way, I feel like that becomes toxic. um or just when you do present yourself and you let your guard down with a friend, and it's like you're vulnerable with them and they don't respect that, I feel like that's toxic. That's a toxic person for me. um
Hmm.
so it's interesting. Yeah.
You want to
Mm,
chime in, Vic?
I do. It's something a little different. I would say for me, a toxic relationship, when I think of the word toxic, would be a surface relationship. And
Hmm.
it's an interesting thought. And the reason why, which it's a bigger story, which I'm sure we have time for later. But it, growing up, it was so easy for me to have surface relationships. I really
Hmm.
didn't know how to have this deep rooted relationship with whether it was a man or a woman
Hmm.
in life in general, just because of how I was, just my environment and how I grew up. So to me, a toxic relationship is just surface because it, in a sense, wastes your time and mine. Like let's just be real friends. Let's be really there for each other. Let's really talk about real things that I care about, things that you care about. Or what's the point? What's the point? We can just be associates. We can, But as far as saying friends, we're not friends. We're just coworkers, or we're just associates. So, my
This
two
is like
cents.
this is so interesting because I think we all have like different perspectives, which I really, really love because I do feel like I've had some very toxic relationships and I've probably contributed to the toxic nature of the relationship, unfortunately. But I think that my last relationship, I view that as a toxic relationship with this guy. And our interaction at first seemed healthy, but as time went on, it just wasn't healthy for me and where I was headed. And I had to kind of detach myself from that person because it wasn't healthy for me to remain in a space where I was open and vulnerable, and allowing myself to be boxed in or stagnant because of, who I was with. And so um, it's just really different perspectives. And I don't think one is right over the other. I think they're all valid and they all make so much sense because I think it's levels and layers to relationships. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that we ultimately have the influence and the power to put and position people where they need to be. So, Ife, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So, when you had to like address that person in that toxic relationship, like how was that for you? Like what did that look like for you?
Well, first of all, it was stressful. Okay, because
That's what I'm saying.
because I am a person, I don't like confrontation. Like I just
Okay.
don't like it. I don't like it. Okay. So my feelings are like I hold my feelings really dear. So if I'm telling you how I feel, we can disagree, but it was hard because I felt like my feelings weren't respected. And I think that that's what hurt, in that moment is like I mustered up all this courage, to have this tough conversation with you that I low key don't even want to have. And then, for my opinion or, my feelings to just be like, oh, okay. And then, now you know me now, and then you're continuing to do the same thing over again. It definitely, it hurt a little, even more. Because I felt like I took the time to be vulnerable. I took a big step for myself um, to do that, and so it was definitely difficult. I would say, like, when I'm thinking about the specific relationship, is something that I still work on. Um, but like you just said, I kind of put the person in a different place in my life. So it's not that we necessarily are not friends anymore. It's just, okay, I know where you're going to say, I know where this person is. It's like certain people are in different places. And so yeah, it was definitely rough though. It wasn't easy for me.
That is like so interesting. And I think that I love us because we are so mature, not to like pat ourselves on the back or toot our own horn, but toot toot in the building. Um, but like, so I think this conversation is almost a little weird for us because we don't have these experiences all the time. Like, and it's not natural or second nature. And the unfortunate part is that, what we see on screen with women majority of the time, especially Black women. I'm not going to even call out any shows, but we see on the screen displayed toxic relationships where, for example, we'll have two people that say that they're friends, right? But then it'll be a group of 6 or 7 or 8, and they'll all be out doing something together, having a great time. Once they leave, somebody is calling somebody else to talk about the person they were just with. Hey, red flag. We're not doing that. Like, like what is that? And because we don't personally have those relationships, because we are quick to talk, quick to cut you off, or quick to put you in your place. Like, period. Like, I mean, either we go cut you off, we go talk about it, try to get to resolve if we can. Then if not, we just go put you in a different spot. Like where you were close over here. No, you're going to go to the back of the house now. You can't be in the front room. You on the porch. Like, so let's talk about that. Like, let's dive into what we see in the media. And I know that there are some great relationships that we don't see. But what bothers me is that majority of the relationships that we see on TV, online, social media, they fighting, they arguing and talking trash, are Black women against other women. And also to even broaden it, even white women. Like, and I don't like that portrayal of that. And that's becoming, for what I believe, for young people, the norm of how to act and behave in relationships. Let's talk about what those images look like, and let's talk about how we can shift the narrative, if you will, to that.
I can see with that example, Tiff, with being on TV or whatever, just like performativity. It was this one show, because I do watch some of it.
I do too.
Of course. You know what I'm saying? And so one of them, for example, I don't know, in it, before I go to that, but the performativity is like a big deal because, it's not, it combats reality, right? So, it kind of presents this image that you can just act a fool on people and have no consequence, experience no consequence of that, or no serious, impactful consequence, not enough consequence for you to change or to do something differently. So it like promotes this image that you can just do whatever and be reckless with people's feelings or people's self-respect and all that. And, it strips away like the empathy aspect of humanity and of how to just be with people, whether you agree with them or not. Like, I feel like it promotes this image or presents this image where like your word and your belief like trumps, or your outlook or perspective trumps others or everyone else's that's around you, or you have to like fully be in agreement on everything in order to be respected by who you call a friend. So it's just real interesting, man. But straight performance is what I see, not all the time on those relationships on TV or on screen, but that's definitely, I think, a big aspect that's taken advantage of, with it being tied to media and entertainment, that aspect.
Wow.
To piggyback off on what you're saying, Courtney, and because of those images all the time happening, I have to fight to get people to not put me in that box when they're relating to me. Like you all know, there's this over the B word. It's like some people refer to their girlfriends as that. No shade. If you want to do it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with what you want to do with your life. That's great. Okay. Let me just get that out. Okay. But that word, it's not a positive word, but we've been called it so many times in music and every other aspect that though we don't do it in our group, there are times when I've been around other females and they've been like, da 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 da, like, hold up, we don't do that here. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, she tripping, because of the images, and the okayness with the disrespect. And because at the end of the day, it's disrespect. But I mean, like I said, I'm not going to debate. People will say, well, that's not how I meant it. That's fine. I'm not about to argue with you. Just personally, it's just we continue in our society to have to be okay with something that is lower and lower and lower and lower and lower than who we came in this earth to be at all times. So I'm always trying to fight against it. So thank you for that, because that just triggered all of that.
I want to kind of piggyback off of what Courtney said about the like the images that we see in media being okay, like making it okay for people to be reckless and there not be any consequences for it. And I think that is, one of a really good point, because a lot of what we see is for entertainment. Like, this is not real life. And so, Tiffany, when you said, or I believe it was Tiffany that said that now this is kind of like how the next generation handles their friendships and things like that. It does scare me, because you can't come up to people talking in any certain type of way. There is no security that's going to help you out. There are no cameramen and producers
Period.
There are no cameramen and producers to grab them people off of you. And so that really, it really is true because I mean, yeah, like people get away with doing crazy stuff on these reality shows that if this was not television, sweetheart, that would not be going on and you would not be coming at that person like that. And I remember that I specifically stopped watching a show because I was like, that was not right. Like what they're doing is not right.
Right.
And I do not agree with that. And people should be able to defend themselves at some point because y'all are over the top. So I do think that a lot of that stuff on TV is over the top, and we don't have to view each other all the time as being catty and like not wanting success for one another. And then it also gives this narrative of when we do say we want success and we want to empower, then it kind of gives this narrative of what that looks like, which is not really empowerment and not really, pushing for women's success. And I think that's being messaged as well. So yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it just from a perspective of women and how we thrive. We thrive from relationships. That's how God created us. So when you are portraying relationships on television, for dramatic purposes, for ratings, these young people are seeing that and they think it's okay. But no, women do not function that way in a healthy way. It's extremely toxic. It's extremely unhealthy to disrespect each other, to dishonor each other, to not walk in love with each other. Because if we don't have relationships, we don't have healthy functioning relationships, then that shifts everything with us mentally, physically, just in numerous ways. So I don't like it from that perspective. And not that I don't ever watch. Well, actually I don't too much. But
I do.
I mean, and there's
I love all y'all out there. Just give you the disclaimer. No hate this way. We love all y'all, but we just want to make sure everybody know that y'all are acting because y'all are.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with watching them. Not that I haven't because I just don't have time to watch them like I probably would like to, because sometimes they are really good. But just for our young people, like I like to just, I want people to keep that in mind, especially young people. Like it's not healthy to be petty and to have all the drama going on with your friends. You need people that you can love, who honor you, who you honor, who you respect at all times.
Yeah, I'll piggyback with that, Lisa, because y'all know for the most part, I don't watch much of that. But when y'all come around me, we will sit on the couch and binge watch it. You're like, Vic, you got to watch this one. Vic, you got to watch this one. But yeah, I'm the same way. It's hilarious. At times it's hilarious, but then at times I'm just like, oh, come on, man. Like, come on. You have to do that. Like, so, it's, I get a whole lot of mixed emotions while I watch those shows, and it's hard for me to just go back and forth. So I tend to stay away from them.
That is hilarious. I think we all had some great insight tonight about what it looks like to be in a toxic relationship. And I think at one level or another, we've all been there. But I think, Lisa, you hit it on the head that as women, our makeup, we are designed to connect, and when we don't have those connections, we can't be and become everything that we should be. And so if you haven't figured it out by now, our message for sure is that you build strong, authentic friendships, period. Like whatever that looks like for you and however you can do that with your tribe, your girls, your peeps, or whatever that is, because if it's not authentic, it's not worth your time. And that's just it. And so we hope you have enjoyed another episode of the 6 Chicks. No, but go ahead, Ife, let them know how to connect with us.
Thank you, Tiff. So if you enjoyed what you heard tonight, we definitely want to make sure that you connect with us. Make sure that you subscribe and download this podcast on every single streaming service that you have. And we want to make sure that you're following us on IG, on Twitter and on Facebook at The Six Chicks. And we want to make sure you also tune in to our YouTube channel, The Six Chicks Podcast, where you will find more broadcasts, bloopers, and all types of realness. Okay. So we want to make sure you also are joining us next time as we start our next series called the Defining Our Womanhood series. Yes, as we discuss about learning ourselves, loving ourselves, and pursuing purpose. So I'm so excited about that. And I hope you are too. I'm so glad you joined us tonight. Please join us next week on The Six Chicks. And remember,
It's time to shine. Yeah.